Welcome, everybody. This is the Coalition on Homelessness December General Membership Meeting and Legislative Preview. We are thrilled you are here with us. We have got a really wonderful agenda for you today. Just a reminder, this is a full 2-hour meeting, so we're going to go all the way up until 11 o'clock. You can see, hopefully, with the screen share, you're able to see that this is our agenda for today. As Nicole, sorry, I was just seeing who was in the waiting room popping up. As Allison mentioned, we love to see faces. We understand there's a lot of reasons why folks might want to stay off camera, and that is fully respected. If you're able to change your name so we can see who you are, your pronouns, how you enter this work, whether that's as a community member or part of an organization, that would be lovely as well. We do really try to build community, and that is not always easy in the Zoom space. But we've got wonderful folks with us, so I'm pleased with how we managed to do that month after month. We are going to start off our meeting today with just a little bit of a preview into 2023. We are going to recap some of our wins around the city and the state and the county, and have some appreciation for some of our Seattle City Council members and the work that they did around the City of Seattle budget. We are going to then launch into the bulk of our agenda, which is our legislative preview. So we have Senator Kuderer here to talk about the work that they are looking at and tracking and following. We have the Low Income Housing Alliance, Mockingbird Society, Poverty Action, and then the coalition itself is going to have breakout rooms to share lots of priorities that are being tracked. You're going to be able to choose which room you want to go into, and we will be sure to share all of this information out and how to learn more after the fact and throughout the meeting. So we want you to kind of pick the thing that you want to learn most about and kind of go a little bit deeper as opposed to the breadth of what we could accomplish. And just know that we're holding together as a collective coalition a lot of areas around housing, homelessness, and anti-poverty and justice around those things. And as part of that, we're also going to talk about what it looks like to be an effective advocate and how the coalition is going to support you through that over the next several months as we wade into the legislative session. And then we should have some time at the end for member announcements. If closed captioning is something that would be helpful for you, you should be able to find that on the bottom of your Zoom screen and the ribbon there, and select live transcript or closed captioning, and we can enable that for you. So that is great. We always like to start off the meeting with community members reading the coalition's mission, vision, and values statement. And for today, we have asked 3 of our participants from the Rally for Human Services and Dignity. They were some of our guests that represent different parts of this work. So if I might invite John to read out the mission, that would be lovely.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. The mission: we mobilize our community to challenge systemic causes of homelessness and advocate for housing justice.
Thank you, John. Amaranthia, are you in the room? Can you read our vision statement? How about Sophie?
Yeah, I'm not sure Amaranthia's here.
Great.
Sophie. Good morning, everybody. Vision: a region that acts on a shared sense of responsibility to ensure that everyone has a home.
Thank you. And is there anyone that would like to read our values statement?
Equity, justice, collective action.
Thank you, Barbara. Very much appreciated. So we're going to move into just a little bit of what we creatively have called coalition business. But this is our 2023 calendar, and this is the first time the coalition has been able to sort of really set the calendar year coming ahead. And we know that busy folks doing frontline essential work, supporting teams, advocating and allies in the community, you're busy. And so getting stuff on your calendar sooner than later, knowing what's coming down the pike that you can share with your teams, your staff, this is like pretty important. And so we're really happy to be able to preview this for you. So, and this is just one piece that the coalition does that fits in with the work that we do around policy and advocacy. So on that note, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Tim, to share a little bit more information about this.
Thanks so much, Jody. And thanks to everyone who's able to join us on this early Thursday morning. We really appreciate you being here with us. So as Jody alluded to, we are a coalition made of a number of different vibrant community members who have a lot of varied interests. And we want to serve all of our members. One of our ways to serve some of our members is by providing knowledge and practice-based trainings for folks who are actively serving folks experiencing homelessness. So I want to walk you through a couple of our trainings that we're planning for 2023, as well as sharing some links so that you can pass on to your service provider colleagues and community members to spread the word. So this past year, we've done a number of trainings that we're going to provide again because they've been very popular with folks. Including training focusing on accessing SSI and SSDI, that's supplemental security insurance and Social Security disability insurance benefits, as well as ABP, aged, blind, and disabled, and HEN, housing and essential needs. Sorry about that. As well as accessing other essential resources like Medicare, Medicaid, and Spend Down, and TANF and Work First. So those are essential resources that folks really depend on, and they can be difficult to navigate. So we want to share with our service providers how they can best support their clients to get those resources. We also have some new trainings available for folks, including a training covering the working families tax credit. That was something that some of our community partners have worked really hard on instituting to ensure a new form of revenue for our working families, as well as a training on long-term care. It can be an important resource to access long-term care for a person who is experiencing medical challenges, and that is certainly exacerbated if a person is also experiencing homelessness. So we'll be working with some community partners to outline that as well. There is a schedule of our first 6 planned trainings on our website. There should be a link dropping in the chat shortly. There it is. Thank you very much, Jody. And we are expecting a few more trainings to come, focusing on a similar public resource series. These are called our Public Benefits Are Key series. We also have a few trainings not related to public benefits, including working with youth and families experiencing homelessness, as well as a couple to be determined. We will be reaching out to folks and are open to feedback from community members about what trainings folks want to see. So we'll be reaching out over the next couple of months to get some feedback on timing and topics. As it stands, we'll generally be providing a training about once a month, in addition to our general membership meetings and other programming. As a reminder, anyone who is interested in revisiting any of our past trainings with some of our community partners can visit that page the training and professional development page on our website to view our YouTube page. There's a link on that page that shows you some of our past community conversations around public benefits and other community topics. So I would like to take a moment to answer any questions. If anyone has a question about our public benefits, our key trainings, or any other trainings that we have in 2023 before we continue on. And if anyone would prefer to email me, my email is in the chat. That's tim@homelessinfo.org. All right. Well, great. I hope to see some folks at our trainings, and definitely let your service provider colleagues know. I would like to pass it on to Allison for the meat of our general membership meeting today regarding advocacy. Allison, take it away.
Thanks so much, Tim. And I want to share with you all something as we were doing some of our internal work as a coalition staff team about the year in review. Tim and Jody pulled some numbers about the numbers of people who attended our membership meetings and trainings over the course of 2022. And well, they didn't take the time to deduplicate, so many people came to many events. We do have the numbers, and I have to say they're really pretty marvelous. 1,200 people attended our membership meetings and trainings, and that doesn't actually include the South King County Forum, which we co-host with our partners at the City of Auburn. But that's people who actually attended, not people who registered and at the last moment weren't able to attend, although we hope that they're watching the videos. And that's just a great reminder for us and for all of you. Thanks for the finger snaps and the responses, that we're doing something useful. And one of the things that we always strive for is anytime we bring folks together, first of all, if it's in person, we're going to feed you. And second of all, we're going to take collective action. But third of all is, you know, we always say this is a coalition of the willing. So how many people are here? 66 people are here this morning. So that tells us that we hope we're giving you useful information that you can take action on. And that's really our purpose and our goal. Your feedback is invaluable. So do not be shy, do not hesitate. We warmly welcome your constructive criticism, your loving corrections, your help with technology, your suggestions, your ideas. We are really excited for 2023 for the trainings, but also for a lot of new kinds of gatherings that we are going to be experimenting with. And while we're probably not going to be going to hybrid right now, it's winter. Please get your booster shots, everybody, and your flu shots. We are thinking ahead to better weather, and we are thinking ahead to bringing folks together in person as an option. We recognize that being together online is actually very, it's very friendly to people who are in different parts of the county, to different work schedules, to different household and family commitments. And we're probably going to keep doing that for the foreseeable future. But we miss being together. And you all know how different it is when you can hang out by the coffee pot with somebody whom you used to work with 5 years ago and catch up with them and find out what they're doing and hear somebody tell about the book that they're reading and really just have that synergy and energy and collaborative opportunity that we didn't plan for. So that's a little forecast for you all. And we are really, really eager to have you join us. I am getting pinged on my mobile phone, so I'm just going to give you real time an update from our wonderful ally and colleague, Seattle City Council member Teresa Mosqueda, who sadly remember I told you, get your flu shot and get your booster. She has a young child, as many people know. Her child's been sick, and she just sent me a message saying she is so sorry, and she is really, really sick, because that's what happens. So of course we send them all of our good wishes for quick healing and recovery, and no worries, because we will invite her in January. I am, I'm going to need to respond to her. But I just want to say, as we go through this legislative preview, and we are going to take some time to talk about the city and the county, we are really interested to hear from you what you need to be an effective advocate. And it's not only you personally. While we value and appreciate each and every one of you, you really are here on behalf of others, your team, your coworkers, the people you work with, whether they are residents in housing, guests in your temporary programs, clients whom you work with in other settings. They are always all welcome, as are the board members of your organizations. And we need everyone's voices, not only when we advocate to city council, county council, or our state legislature. We need everyone's voices as we develop our advocacy. We are grounded in the realities every day and every night of what homelessness looks like and who is doing the work. And your input has helped us do a lot of things that simply wouldn't have gotten done otherwise. And we're hoping that that continues. So I would like to ask, this is a little bit out of order, but I just want to ask if people would be so kind as to think, as we're going through this next session, what would help you, not only you take action or feel comfortable speaking up, but what would help the folks whom you work with? And that is however you define it. Could be your book group, could be your neighbors, could be a congregation, but for many of you, it's going to be your workplace and the people who work with you as your colleagues and the people whom you work with as guests, residents, clients. That's what we are here to do, is to make it easy for your voices to be heard, and theirs as well. So I'm going to ask Sarah, would you be so kind, while I respond to Councilmember Mosqueda, as to give people just a little bit of a rundown about our city and county budgets and where we have ended up. We're going to shorten this part of the agenda. You're watching this agenda editing in real time, folks. And we're going to celebrate what we got to, but I just want to let Councilmember Mosqueda know, heard, understood, go back to bed. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, no problem. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be with you this morning. I will talk a little bit about some of the outcomes in the city and the county budget. I'll talk first about the county budget. So we were able to secure $5 million in COVID relief dollars that will go towards homeless and housing contract inflation. So homeless and housing service contracts. I don't know how it pencils out into a percentage exactly yet, but the total amount that will be going to the King County Regional Homelessness Authority for the projects that are funded with King County dollars will get some amount of inflation adjustment, somewhere between 8 and 9% contract inflation. In other, not around our advocacy, but just generally in the King County budget, something to note is that the Housing and Essential Needs program that has been gone from Department of Commerce to King County, that will also be moving over to the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. And as we know in King County, the entity that runs that is Catholic Community Services. So those were the And unless Allison, you have something else to add on county.
I will just add one quick note. We don't yet know what percent inflation adjustment will be on those contracts. We worked very hard to say 7.6% is the minimum, but inflation is 9.5. However, these are funds that are one-time, and they are funds that come from the federal money that was going to be used to do the SOTO expanded service site. And we also have a value that we want not only for contracts to cover the real cost of doing the work, but not to leave providers out. So there is work going on behind the scenes to figure out what the percentage is so that contracted agencies that have operations and staff costs, not capital costs, not rent assistance, get as high a percentage inflation adjustment as possible. So that's why we don't completely have the answer about the percentage yet.
Do you want me to talk about city, or do you want to talk about city, Allison?
Well, maybe we can both do it. I just had a thought. So this is the point at which we were going to welcome Councilmember at Large, Teresa Mosqueda. As many of you know, she was the budget chair this year during the budget process at the City of Seattle. And she is the person whom we worked with, we, the Coalition on Homelessness, and our allies at the Seattle Human Services Coalition, at SEIU 1199 Northwest and OPEIU Local 8, and many of your organizations and other partners to pass a law in 2019 to adjust city human services contracts to keep up with inflation. I think it would be great to take a moment, since we have Sophie here and John Rios still here, if you are willing, again, not to put you on the spot, but to welcome you. We invited Sophie and John to read mission and vision statements, and Amaranthia wasn't able to join us because they were two of our knockout speakers at the rally that Sarah hosted and that we helped to organize on November 8th at Seattle City Hall. And so without, no warning, I'm going to let you just sort of think, each of you a little bit, Sarah, John, and Sophie, if you might want to think about what you shared at the rally or something else related to this, while I just give a brief history. Why did we pass the Inflation Adjustment Ordinance in 2019? First of all, we're going to thank Councilmember Teresa Mosqueda, Councilmember Lisa Herbold, Councilmember Tammy Morales, Councilmember Andrew Lewis, and their colleagues, Councilmember Strauss, Councilmember Juarez, Councilmember Sawant. We'll talk about the remaining two council members a little bit later, but they were not as supportive, I will just say, of doing the right thing in this budget. And so that's important for everyone to know, and it's important for them to hear why that is very disappointing and troubling. But Councilmember Mosqueda, because she has a very strong background in health, human services, and organized labor, immediately understood when we brought to her the issue of needing to stop the backward slide, the perpetual underpayment of contracts, and the perpetually inadequate funding. This is an obvious issue, but it was not necessarily so simple to craft a law around, because you all understand there are multiple sources of funding for the work that you do. They are federal, they are state, they are county, they are local, and there's a lot of private money, and there are constraints on each and every funding source. Nevertheless, we worked with her and her fabulous team. Sejal Parikh, her chief of staff, was the lead on this. And I just want to invite you, if you worked on that 2019 adjustment legislation, would you just do something? Come off mute, put yourself on camera or indicate in some way, because I know there are folks here who helped us work on that. And John Rios is doing a thumbs up. We have so many people, I can't see everyone on this call, but thank you, because we didn't know that COVID-19 was hitting us 1 year later, but boy, was it a good thing that we passed that ordinance. And as many people know, when Mayor Harrell sent his proposed budget to the city council, it was not in compliance with that law. It was a proposal that was effectively a 1.4% increase. And it was accompanied by a suggestion that council actually pass legislation to undo that ordinance. From the word go, we put out the call, the Seattle Human Services Coalition put out the call. We contacted council members Mosqueda, Herbold, and their colleagues. And we showed up, you showed up at every single public comment, along with folks who were commenting on other hugely important issues around police accountability and other parts of the budget. And they heard us loudly and clearly. So I am very pleased to say we did get the 7.6% inflation adjustment required under the law. And we also made it very clear that we were not stand for undoing that ordinance. Doesn't mean that couldn't be tried in the future. So I just want to, Sarah, if I can hand this to you and Sophie and John. The thanks to Tim, the entire rally with some rousing, beautiful speeches is also on YouTube and on our Facebook page. And I think it's worth it if you're feeling down, if you're feeling alone in this work, to remember there is something called solidarity, and that's part of what we provide for each other. And it's very effective to take action together. So I see like Sophie looks like she's primed, and I just want to take a little bit of the time that we were going to have Councilmember Mosqueda here with us and just instead hear a little bit from our members. John, please go right ahead.
Oh, I don't know if Sophie wanted to speak first. I just, in response to what you were saying, kind of where things came from 2019. So I'll let her start.
Oh, okay. Sophie, John, Sarah, how's that? Thank you. And thanks for improvising with us.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Allison. Happy to be here. I felt really honored to be asked to speak on, as a part of OPEIU Local 8. And really what I wanted to focus on for that rally was our commitment to this community and our commitment to this work, and how every single one of us, every single day, we choose this work and we love this work and we're committed to this work. And all we're asking for is a reciprocity in that investment in the city, and an acknowledgement that we want to keep making this better together, and really focusing on, we have come a long way as a city, as policy, as funding, as social services. We've come a long way, and we can celebrate that, and at the same time keep asking for more and keep asking for better. I think when you inherently love something and appreciate something, you know that it could be better and you fight for that. And really just like I said, just know it, like this is very hard work, and with the compounding human services, funding cuts, it's just everywhere. So it's not just one sphere, one slice of the picture. It's, it's all of the navigating through housing, through shelter, through social services. Every single one of those is underfunded. Every single one is understaffed. So it's just this compounding effect that then impacts our residents, impacts our guests just monumentally. So just asking for that investment from the city, because we love the city and we love to watch the city grow, and we love the community members that we get to serve every day. And we ask for that acknowledgement. We want to keep doing this work, and we want to thrive in this work and keep investing in the city. So that was kind of my spiel, and I was happy to be there and happy to be here. So thanks, team, for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It was really a pleasure to hear you speak, and everyone else as well. And a great big thank you to all the council members that were involved with that. There's, like, Mosqueda has been an incredible advocate for a lot of the work that we do. And it's just been really amazing to have a chance to work with her. I want to talk a little bit about the history going back to 2019, maybe about kind of where this all started. So a lot of our contracts and service organizations, they're just a flat amount. And when we get awarded those, a lot of times it's for multi-year contracts. None of those had any ties to inflation. So, you say, let's just keep it easy. You get a grant for $100,000 for 3 years. But that doesn't really cover the cost of everything else that's happening. Because while that contract stays at a flat amount, like the prices of everything is going up. The price of power is going up. The price of rentals for some of our building spaces, everything around us is going up. And so what was happening is that was starting to affect the ability to put that money towards wages. Even before the pandemic, I think that we were already struggling with staffing and a lot of the social services agencies and everything, that the money just wasn't there. There was too many people kind of leaving. And, as Sophie mentioned, the compounding of some of those problems, especially through COVID and everything, we saw a massive loss of workforce and everything. And so in 2019, like our big thing was that, like, if we can get these contracts that are tied to inflationary increases and stuff, then we'll be better able to withstand the different things that happen from year to year with increases of the different things, food, gas, all the different things that we all experience and our organizations have to take on, especially I think power and electricity is a big one of those. So there's a big call to have a lot of workers come and talk, because that was something that was definitely starting to affect our wages, and again where our organizations are able to put their money. And so there was a lot of workers that came and spoke about why these inflationary ties are so important and how that equates to better wages for folks. And so it was very disappointing this year. Bruce Harrell, who was a part of that on the city council back in 2019, went above and beyond and said some remarks that I think that were very pertinent that he seemed to go back on. And so that kind of led us into this fight to be right where we were, I guess, fighting for something that we already thought that we won. And it was amazing to see all the support and people coming out and talking at City Hall, at all the council meetings and everything. So a great big thank you for all of you who were there attending those things and speaking. When I was at the rally, one of the things that I was really trying to impress upon is the fact that, like, even through the pandemic, all of us were still here. All of us were still serving our clients, recognizing that our clients had nowhere to go in a pandemic, and all the services around them, all the day centers, all the services were being shut down where they would normally go, or the housing options because of COVID made it so we couldn't have some of the larger shelters, congregational situations and stuff like that. So we had to move to more of a hotel base. And so there's a big scramble to make all those things happen. And so it was just really rough on a lot of our folks and stuff, but we were still there with them through that entire thing. As essential frontline workers, we never left. And so when the city comes back with a new budget, where they spend their money really says what their priorities were. And I think looking at Harold's budget proposal, we just didn't see that commitment to the social services that, have been holding on to this promise that, that he himself made a couple of years back to, have this inflationary tie to the contracts and stuff. So that's kind of what led to where things were this year and some of the stuff that I spoke about and a little bit of history. So I'll pass it on to the next person.
Thank you, John and Sophie. I don't know that I have anything additional to add. I think I will channel, Councilmember Mosqueda, who really, focused on, this is the inflation adjustment that we got in 2019 is the law. And what happened in the mayor's budget proposal was to undo and change and overturn the law, which is a big concern. I mean, that we got the law changed, And as a lawyer, that's what I've spent my entire career doing, is changing the law to help people living on low incomes and, needing to access, life-sustaining services. And what we had to fight was a administration trying to change the law, which put us in a position where we had a lot more work in this city budget than we expected. This was not, our plan going in was, how can we get more for essential workers? How can we get more for this sector? How can we get more so that we can raise wages for essential workers? And we had to spend our time fighting for what already existed in the law. I appreciate everyone who came along with us in that, because we unfortunately, needed all of you to show up for public testimony, to send emails to your council members. And we won, but what we won was what we were entitled to under the law, which is a frustrating win, I guess is how I would put it. But yes, yeah. So that I think is what is the only piece that I will add to that particular area. I'll hand it back to you, Allison.
Okay, well, I thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, John. Thank you, Sophie. And I think Sarah's point is an important one, and I want to make sure that we also note John actually had a chance, as a group from SEIU 1199 Northwest and DESC met with the mayor, to actually very directly speak to Mayor Harrell about the sense of disappointment. And I heard about this from John and from others who were in the meeting. And I think what's really significant is that that landed with Mayor Harrell. So I am hopeful that we as a coalition are going to have a chance to speak with the mayor early in the new year. I think that there is much to be learned, and it is never a bad thing to demonstrate strength. But as Sarah said, we had a lot of other things that we were going to work on, because there are still thousands of people who do not have their basic needs for safety and shelter and warmth and survival met in this whole community. And that's actually what we generally spend our time working on in the budget. So I will also note briefly, because we have many, many partners here who were affected by this, folks are aware that there was a $9.4 million gap that affected 20 programs, many of them shelters and day centers, in 12 agencies. Many of them are coalition member organizations, and that would have resulted in cuts in services unacceptably in 2023. And we worked very hard with all of you to ensure that that was a priority. The outcome of that, I am happy to say, is that that gap has been closed. Now, there is complexity to that, because the gap was closed in part through underspend that KCRHA had. And let's just say we are in conversation about how to ensure that we are, again, working towards the expansion and strengthening of our sector and the expansion of services, and not scrambling at the last minute to just maintain what we have. That said, we're never going to be okay with losing capacity, and we mobilize as needed. So there's one other piece that I will note. It is a small piece in some respects. It is not done. It is not a done deal, but we worked with Councilmember Mosqueda in conversation with Deputy Mayor Washington, with the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, with folks in the outreach work around making sure that the City of Seattle's staff and funding for those staff who interact with folks who are unsheltered and experiencing homelessness is actually that those folks do the city job of attending to garbage and making sure that our public restrooms and water fountains function, and that the work related to responding to the needs of people experiencing homelessness is where it should be in our crisis response system coordinated by the Regional Homelessness Authority. As you can imagine, there is quite a bit of sensitivity around that. So the transition has been entered into the budget. There is additional work to be done around that. We'll keep you all posted around that, but I think the basic principles are the ones that we have all stood up for and represented consistently. People are not garbage. We absolutely support a clean city where garbage gets picked up, where needles can be disposed of appropriately, and where our public restrooms are clean and staffed, if appropriate, and ready for everyone to use. And that is not the same as responding to people's need for housing. So with that said, we will invite Councilmember Mosqueda to join us probably in our January meeting. If you have any questions, or there's of course a whole lot more that happened in the city and county budgets, I want to move us along to the next part of our agenda, which is how to be an effective advocate. And because we have a little bit of time, I would like to suggest that you drop in the chat one of the following, if you are so moved to participate in this way. Could you name one thing that has helped you to speak up and take action? And one thing that you think would help your coworkers, your neighbors, your allies, and the folks whom you work with to be able to do so. Let's just remember, once upon a time, we had those big postcards. They were half of an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And you probably remember them because we've handed out and collected thousands of them over the years. And they have our legislative priorities and space for people to write why those priorities matter. And over the years, we've hand delivered those postcards to lawmakers in Olympia by the thousands. One of the reasons we love them is they're low tech. And we can, and you can, do what we did with them, which is go to a shelter, have them at a day center, have a staff meeting, have a pizza party, and invite people to communicate with their elected officials. Low tech is sometimes very good, and we will gladly supply you with some versions of that. But what are some other ideas that you have found that work? Please just feel free to share those. And we really appreciate the feedback, and we're going to be, in learning mode with you. I noticed Poe is here from the Housing Alliance, and I want to say that, there is incredible opportunity for us as we work with our sister organizations and coalitions that do work on the state level. And we're the ones here in Seattle and King County who need to turn out our local voices. So the primary message that I want to share in this part of the agenda is the following. When we take action, we're doing it not just once, not just twice, we are doing it through the entire course of the work. You just heard John describe, we've got work going on since 2019 and before. It took years to pass that legislation, and here we are about to enter 2023. So there is longevity required of us as advocates in that respect, but also we're about to head into a long legislative session, which is still short. We have a part-time state legislature, which is a little bit wacko. I mean, not the legislature, but the fact that it's part-time. There is so much work to be done. And I think Senator Kuderer has just joined us, so I will let her talk with us about some of the process pieces. But this is going to be the first legislative session in 3 years when lawmakers will be there in person, when many lobbyists will be there in person, but many of us will still be participating remotely. So we want to just remind you, if we ask you to take action on a piece of legislation, for example, to strengthen the HEN, Housing and Essential Needs Program. You will be hearing from us frequently, and we will be asking you to be consistent. Persistence gets the goods. These bills move through multiple committees, multiple stages of the process, and that's actually where some of our strength comes in. And you all know it well, because if you are doing direct service work, you understand you need to meet people where they are and you need to stick around with them. And it's really the same for the legislative advocacy that we do. So thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing the comments. Please keep them coming in the chat because we will be learning from them. Just before I introduce Senator Kuderer, and welcome to you, Senator Kuderer, I want to let folks know what happens after this section. Sarah's going to be facilitating, and we'll have time for folks, I think, we'll both hear from the Senator and ask some questions. And thank you so much for joining us. And we're then going to have breakout rooms, because the other thing I want to underscore for all of us, it's worth remembering, you do not have to become a policy expert to be an effective advocate. The great Nancy Amade is here. Hi, Nancy. And Nancy has our favorite definition of advocacy. Advocacy just means speaking up. You all know how to do it. Sophie didn't take a public speaking class or become a policy expert before she spoke at the rally. John Rios has policy expertise, as does Sophie, and as do all of you, by virtue of doing the work. And what you bring is your voice, your interpretation, your authenticity, your honesty, and your persistence. And that is powerful stuff. Fortunately, we have our allies, Poe and his colleagues at the Housing Alliance, our wonderful partners at Statewide Poverty Action, the folks at Mockingbird Society. You can tap into their detailed knowledge about the bills and the processes. What you have is the opportunity to pick a room a little bit later in this session and just do a little bit of a deep dive with some of our partners, with Sarah on HEN, about 1 or 2 issues. Yes, we will be talking about all of them for the next 4 months, but you don't have to be an expert in everything. Just join in, pick something that is of interest, and we will go through that before we ask you to join a breakout room. So I hope that gives you the confidence that you need to feel that you're already on your way to being an effective advocate. Some of you have been doing this for years. We welcome you to share your expertise. And with that, I'm going to go on mute and welcome Senator Kuderer and welcome Sarah to facilitate this portion of our agenda. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Allison. And thank you so much, Senator Kuderer, for joining us this morning. So Senator Kuderer represents the 48th Legislative District and is the chair, or has been the chair of the Senate Housing and Local Government Committee, a committee that is very near and dear to this group, because much of the super important legislation related to new housing, policies around new housing development, housing services, local government services, ends up in Senator Kuderer's committee. So thank you so much for being here. We would love to hear about some of the priorities that you have this upcoming session that relate to housing and homelessness.
Thank you, Sarah and Allison, and good morning, everyone. It's a privilege to be with you. I'm staring at myself right now, so I'd like to get myself off that view. It's kind of weird to look at yourself while you're talking. But I wanted to just kind of give you first a little background, and then we'll go into what we're expecting for next session. We created the Housing Committee in the Senate, and it's reverting back to just housing. And we did that for a reason. And I am the chair again, very happy to remain in that position. We created the Housing Committee in the Senate because we knew that we needed to have a laser focus on housing and housing-related issues, including homelessness. My personal philosophy is that housing is a human right and that homelessness is a solvable problem. It's not solvable with one silver bullet or one law, but it is a solvable problem. And it will take resources, it will take creative policies, and it will take us working across all levels of government to make this work, and with the private sector. So that's my orientation to start with. We started when we created the committee in the first place. We had a vision that dealt with prevention, in other words, preventing people from falling into homelessness. So you saw a lot of work on the RLTA, the Landlord Tenant Act, and including renter protections in that particular law. You also saw that we strengthened that a few years later by adding the right to counsel in eviction proceedings. We are the first state in the country to have a statewide right to counsel in evictions. The preliminary data that we've gotten on that program is that it has been very, very successful. Over 50% of the tenancies have been saved. And when we're talking about saving a tenancy, we're not just talking about making sure a landlord gets paid. We're also talking about the fact that there's a family or an individual who's not going to experience homelessness and the trauma that goes along with that. It's really, really critical that we understand that paying for an attorney on the front end in the eviction process is actually far less expensive to taxpayers than it would be to pay for costs when someone falls into homelessness. So that was one of the things that we focused on. Another thing we focused on was preservation of existing affordable housing. That's where we put a lot of money into the Housing Trust Fund, historic levels, 175 million one year, 175 million the next year. But what we learned from that is that it was still not enough to really make sure we're preserving the existing affordable housing. And so we needed to, you're going to see more. You're going to see a push to put more money into the Housing Trust Fund next year. And I'm talking upwards of $400 million for the biennium. And that's significant for a number of reasons, but that is long overdue, to be honest, if we're going to catch up. We are behind in our housing inventory. We're allowing affordable housing to become unaffordable, and we need to change that. Along with that comes the need to guard against gentrification and displacement, though you're going to see more of those policies integrated into our preservation and production, which is the third prong of what our committee vision was, more production of housing units. You're going to see more creativity in the policy in terms of the kind of housing that we're building. Just so you know, while local government is no longer part of my committee, local government bills that deal with housing, for example, the missing middle, permitting process, those kinds of things will come to the Housing Committee. So that's sort of the general overview, the 10,000 foot view of what we're looking at and going forward next year. You're going to see some tweaks to the eviction process again, in terms of the court process. We're going to try and make that go faster because right now it can take upwards of towards a year, and that's not working for anybody, to be honest. So we're going to be looking at possibly creating a housing court where we can have a court process that is devoted to housing issues. You're going to see bills, probably plural, on the missing middle and how we go about addressing that. So the ability to add duplexes and triplexes and quads and other multi-unit buildings, especially near transit-oriented development, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. You're going to see bills related to that as well, to maximize our existing infrastructure. You're going to see legislation dealing with the multifamily tax exemption program. And there will be, I have a bill that I'm working on right now that will make significant changes to that, which will change it from being a 12-year program to a 99-year program, which will change it from 20% of units, which we all know developers have been allocating efficiencies and 1 bedrooms primarily. We will be changing that to 35% of square footage of buildings. And we're also going to extend that to the remodeling of existing buildings that can be repurposed into housing units. Right now, the MFTE only applies to new construction. I see Amy is on the call, and she's going to be in the committee talking about people who are living in their vehicles. We're going to be looking for policies that can assist those folks. And we have to remember that when we're dealing with the issue of homelessness, this isn't it isn't people aren't homeless for the same reason. And there are different demographics and different needs. And, for example, last year, we passed my bill dealing with foster youth who are falling into homelessness at an alarming rate following their exiting of the foster system. And so what we did is we extended the housing voucher through age 24 for our foster youth and young people. And the goal there is to greatly reduce the number of foster youth that fall into homelessness within 1 year of exiting the system. So that's the kind of creative thinking I'm talking about, more targeted approaches to addressing these problems so that we're maximizing not just the taxpayer dollars, but people's times, resources, maximizing efficiencies within the processes that we already have. It's not an easy lift. We have a lot of competing stakeholders. The cities have been very resistant to changes to local zoning that would allow us to do density infill where it makes sense. Some cities are doing it. Some cities are not. And there was a lot of work done over the interim with our cities discussing the issues of zoning and single family zoning, also known as exclusionary zoning, which has been an impediment to allowing us to do this infill in a strategic and smart way. And so that I'm happy to report that the cities are moving in the right direction on that particular issue. And so I have a lot of hope that our missing middle bill will be able to advance through the legislature this next session. There are other things we're working on. We put into place the just cause standard for evictions. You probably have been hearing about the ARCH ordinance that has been going around. Some cities have adopted it. We are working, I'd like to see that type of approach be uniform across the state. We weren't able to get those kinds of protections in at the state. It's a little more challenging, but now that more cities are doing it, it might make it easier for us to implement those changes at the state. Anyway, it's going to be a big year for housing, a very big year, and your voices are critical to helping us get comprehensive housing policy passed, because that's what the state needs. We are at this point down about 225,000 housing units that we need right today. And the estimate is that we're going to need about 1 million more by 2044. So we've got our work cut out for us. We need to streamline the permitting process so that we can have we can increase the number of housing units that come online more quickly. And we need to be, like I said, we need to be working across all stakeholders, all levels of government to make sure that we get this done. And you probably saw the governor has issued his budget, and you probably saw that he wants to increase the debt limit temporarily in order for us to invest lots more of money into the housing, into building more housing inventory. And that will go before, if we pass that, that will go before the taxpayers on a referendum. So my feeling is that is a big part of the problem, is that we simply don't have the money to build as many units as we need right now. But if we do get that passed, if we are able to increase the debt limit temporarily so that we can invest in housing production, and we can streamline the process and we can leverage existing infrastructure, you're going to see us be able to put more homes on the market more quickly. So that's the goal. And it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm open for some questions. I do have another meeting, Allison. I just saw your email right before I hopped on about Representative Macri, and she would have a lot to say about this issue as well. But I have a school district meeting I have to get on in about 9 minutes.
Well, thank you.
So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, we probably have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. Senator Kuderer, I'm just going to ask for you. You mentioned ARCH ordinance. Can you just explain what that acronym is?
Yeah, that's the Regional Housing Coalition, and they have been promoting renter protections that are more extensive than what we were able to get passed at the state level. So for example, rent increases at the state level are 60 days, but under the ARCH ordinance, they're 180 days. So there's a big difference there. And I think when we're talking about rent increases, and, you know, it's interesting because we hear a lot that, you know, that landlords are leaving the market and this kind of thing, but we don't really know if the house that was sold, if that remained a rental unit. We don't know if it went to a first-time home buyer, which would be a good thing. We don't know those things. And so I'm going to be proposing a housing registry bill. I had proposed it 2 years ago. It was torpedoed by the landlord lobby. I changed it to a work group to figure out what's the best way to create a housing registry. They torpedoed that. So now I'm back to just thinking we need a housing registry because we need to have that real-time data. We need to know where these homes are. We need to know what they're renting for. Rent is not tied to cost plus a modest % profit. It's tied to area median income. And while we're fortunate to have a higher area median income due to the tech industry in our state, it does pose a problem for a lot of families. And we have a significant percentage of renters who are rent burdened. And that means they're just, you know, one disaster away from becoming homeless. And I think it's incumbent upon us to prevent that situation from happening in the first place. You saw the work we did during the pandemic to prevent people from falling into homelessness. Over $1 billion was paid out directly to landlords to help people stay in their homes and stay housed. And we also created a permanent emergency rental assistance fund at the state as well. And we are the only state that does not tax rental income. And we also have programs at the state to help our landlords. And that's because, and I'm totally okay with all of that because I do believe housing is a human right. I do believe it's an essential need, and it's different from other things that people offer for sale, if you will. And so because of that, I think it's important to make sure that we're working collaboratively with, you know, landlords need tenants and tenants need landlords. But we have to make sure that people have the ability to afford their homes, and that also is a very complex problem.
Thank you for that, Sarah Jane. Did you have a quick question? Then I think we have to probably let Senator Kuderer get to her next meeting.
I did, and thank you, Senator Kuderer. You're one of my heroes in this work. Question I have is, in the missing middle housing bill, and I know it's going to be changed quite a bit from last time, we didn't see anything that would assure that new units are affordable, and there wasn't anything in there about anti-displacement. And I just went to the city's outreach. There's this big board, you know, it says just anti-displacement, but it didn't actually have a plan. So I'm really hoping that we'll see actual programs that actually would keep individuals, families from being displaced from their homes.
Yes, excellent point, Sarah Jane, and thank you for your email. And I have actually forwarded that to Representative Bateman, who is working on the missing middle with me. I agree. I think we need to be very cautious about what happens to people when we are looking at the missing middle and making sure that we have proper anti-displacement provisions in place. Affordability is a trickier question because it is directly tied to income inequality. And, you know, we couldn't even get the Democratic Senate out in Congress to raise the minimum wage. And so I think we have to be, you know, I think that's where the government has to be a partner in this. And there are some models out there. There is, you know, the Vienna model, the Singapore model, the Helsinki model that talks about how the government is an active partner in building housing units. And then you do have to qualify to enter, but you don't, if you reach a certain income threshold, you're not automatically asked to leave. And that's been part of the problem with our housing authorities, is that it's only for a certain income level. And you can, and that doesn't make any sense. So we're looking at ways of ending the cliffs, and that's true for other social programs as well. Those hard cliffs do not work. They actually keep people down. And I think we can do a better job extending a bridge so that people have more time to get their feet under them and get established. So that we're going to be working on that. The other thing we need to make sure is that there's a guarantee that there will be density built, because the last thing we want to do is increase the property values, which would increase property taxes without any guarantee that we're actually going to see density infill where it makes sense. So that's going to be part of the missing middle bill too, is my understanding.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning. I'm sure we will be in touch with you on a lot of different issues this upcoming session, and we just appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you again. And, you know, I have an open door policy, would love to hear from you. And when we do have bills, please sign in. Even if you don't want to testify, please sign in and let your voice be known, whether you support the proposal or oppose the proposal. It's really, really helpful for us to have that information. So with that, I'm going to wish you all happy holidays. And thank you again for letting me participate in your meeting here today.
Thank you so much, Senator Kuderer.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
We look forward to continuing to work with you.
Okay, so before we move on to our next section, Rachel, I'm going to have you stop record. So thank you. Welcome back from our breakout rooms. This was, hopefully you got to have some really good time with your folks. Huge thanks to Amanda, Leanna, Poe, Sarah for hosting the coalition's room. We are definitely going to make sure you get all the information from all the other breakout rooms. If you have been checking out our blogs lately, Tim knocks it out of the park with amazing blogs. Huge step up from what yours truly was doing in all my busyness. So look for that blog post, look for the recording, and then we will be sure to be also, like I said, sharing out all this really good information. We're gonna collect as much one-pagers and details, and we will share this out. We're going to continue to meet around these issues throughout the legislative session. Our January, you know, I like to call out our future meetings. Our January meeting, we are going to be revisiting all this stuff along with many other opportunities throughout the session as we figure out what that should look like to support your all's needs. The other way, and I did see this popping up into the chat when Allison asked what helps, is our emails. So sign up for our emails and our listservs. That's where we let you know what's happened at the coalition, what's happening with our partner organizations. That's what we use to send out our advocacy targeted action alerts so that you can take those actions again and again as a bill that we're supporting is moving through the legislative process, or if there's something that we need to say, hey, this is not a best practice, this does not serve us as essential workers, the folks we're working with and serving, then we want to make sure we're letting them know that as well. So that's the best way to do that. We are going to move on, and we are going to talk a little bit more about what it looks like to be an effective advocate, how we do this, ways to get involved and to stay. There are some bad vows we need to kill. I wasn't sure if we were going to use that word, but we're using that word. Yeah, we need to squash bad policy, right? I mean, the coalition is up for promoting and lifting up and sharing best practices and bringing people together around that. And we're not going to shy away from policies that do not work for us and do not work for people and put people first and centered. That is not what we're about. So on that note, I am going to pass it over to Sarah. Hopefully you can see her screen. We can see it, Sarah. We can also see your presenter view. So if that matters to you, you can switch it up to non-presenter view. Thank you.
Okay. With one screen, with only one monitor, it's hard to manage both the sharing and the all the Zoom functions. So thanks everybody. I am going to do a quick presentation, easy advocacy. So trying to outline what are the ways that all of us can take part in not just the legislative session, but this is focused really on the legislative session because that's what's coming up, but on advocacy in general, letting our lawmakers know what we care about, what's important to us, and how to do it so it doesn't feel like a lot of work. Okay, move to the next slide. Okay. The first one, which I think is the easiest, I saw it come up in the chat, is take action advocacy emails. And the coalition does this, and most of our partner organizations do this. We write the message, we put it all in a very easy format where you click a button, you put in your information, it pulls up your legislators, and you hit send. What we would love for you to do when you do that is to personalize that email message. So we, generally speaking, the first paragraph and also the title of the email is the best place to personalize it. Then your lawmakers can see that that this is a priority and that you have put your own personal message in that. And I think one of the things to think about is, and I'll use, one of our priorities from this upcoming session. So we are going to have a big focus on housing and essential needs, the HEN program, and improving that program and making changes. We will potentially be running a bill, not finalized yet, but looking highly likely. We need people to take action throughout session. So just because you did our message on January 15th, I'm making that up, when our message comes out on January 20th, there's a high likelihood that that something has moved to a different committee or moved to a different, moved between the House and the Senate. And we have to inform a different set of lawmakers or the same set of lawmakers on a new piece of the where the legislation is. So sign up. We'll send out these slides afterwards. There's a link. Make sure you sign up for coalition emails. All of our other partner organizations, when you sign up for their email alerts, you will get their advocacy messages. And usually once you've taken action with a particular organization, you will continue to get their advocacy messages that you can send an email. call your legislators. So the legislative hotline, 1-800-562-6000. This is a hotline that is not during session. You will sometimes get a message during legislative session. You will usually get a live person. This person will relay your message to your legislators. They will ask you for your name and street address. This is so that your messages get to your correct legislators. And you can leave messages of support for a bill, concerns on a bill, questions about a bill. And it's an easy way. It's an easy way to let your legislators know what you think about particular pending legislation. You can attend an advocacy day in Olympia. So this coming legislative session is going to be a hybrid session, so partially online and partially in person. The last 2 sessions have been completely virtual. There has not been any in person, so this year is different. I chose many organizations have advocacy days in Olympia throughout legislative session. Statewide Poverty Action Lobby Day is scheduled. Registration is open. That is on Monday, January 16th, 2023. The Washington Low Income Housing Alliance Housing and Homeless Advocacy Day is in process. This will be in February 2023. More details to come. You can continue to check their website, sign up for their email alerts to get more information about when that will be happening and how to sign up. You can introduce yourself to your lawmakers. I included a link to the Legislative Finder tool on the ledge.wa.gov website. Small caveat, legislative districts were redistricted recently, and this particular tool has not yet been updated with the new legislative districts. We have been assured that it will be updated when legislative session starts, which is Monday, January 9th. So you might want to, if you know you're in a redistricted district or you're not sure, you might want to wait until the beginning of legislative session. But that will give you who your legislators are. It will give you their email addresses. And you can send an email, and we will probably have some kind of at the beginning of session, we'll probably do a template for all of you to do this, but send an email to your lawmakers, your name, where you work, what you do, and what are the issues that are important to you. And let them know they will be hearing from you throughout session on the issues that you care about. And either through email alerts, direct emails, phone calls, or, as Senator Kuderer mentioned, signing in pro on or con if there's a bill that you oppose. And lastly, this is not for everyone, but you can testify on a particular bill. As Allison talked about earlier in effective advocacy, you are an expert and legislators need to hear from you. If you are interested in sharing your experience, whether that's as a service provider, whether that's lived experience related to particular legislation, you can testify for a bill, there will be opportunities to do this remotely and also in person. And the coalition, and I know other organizations, offer this as well. We are always happy to help with support. We can let you know when those things are. We can help you write your testimony, let you know how much time. You can practice with us, whatever support or help you need, if this is something that you want to do. And if you're thinking now this is maybe something you want to do, even before we kind of know what's happening, feel free to reach out to me, and we can, when there are opportunities to testify, we can reach out to you and let you know. We often send out messages asking, for people to offer public testimony on a particular issue. And if you want to be part of that list, we're happy to, to reach out with those opportunities. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Jody, do we have time for any questions?
We do.
We do.
Yeah, I think we can take a few questions here before we open it up to member announcements.
Great. Any questions about easy advocacy or other ideas around easy advocacy?
And maybe while we give folks a moment to think, I just want to note, Sarah, I think we lost the thread of the agenda of talking about homeless worker stipends. So maybe before member announcements, I'll ask you to speak to that. All right. Do you feel ready to take action starting January 9th? Give us some indication. Jude, thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, Jude is enthusiastic. John Rios, Amanda, Nancy, thank you. Thank you, thank you. All right, David, awesome. All right, Denise. So it seems so abstract, but we are trotting along right now, and pretty soon we're going to be at a gallop. I just want to acknowledge, not everyone wants to or can come off mute and speak at this meeting format, but we know that there's at least one person on this call who has a lot of experience with being unsheltered and with living in a vehicle. And I just sent a message to that person saying, there is going to be legislation related to this. You have expertise. If you would like to participate, we will support you. And that person responded, yes. So thank you so much. And just think about that for yourself and for others you know. This can be intimidating. Sarah is an incredible guide. When I listen to Sarah give public testimony, I think, boy, that is a professional. But you know what? You are also equipped to do a powerful, powerful presentation, and we will support you to do it. We understand it can feel scary. We understand you might need to check with your boss. There are a lot of layers to this, but please know, Senator Kuderer is a very approachable person. And she is one of the people who will also support people giving testimony. And what we want you to walk away from this thinking is, I could do that. I might need a little pep talk. I might need a little support or practice or whatever it is. But once you do it, you will feel the power of sharing your expertise. Lawmakers hear from paid lobbyists in suits, day in and day out. Quite honestly, some of those people are really good at their jobs. They do not have the real experience of direct service and lived experience that you do. And when you speak, your authenticity comes through and they snap to attention. So we're going to be inviting you many times. It is an open door. We will help you. because your voices are incredibly, incredibly powerful. There's also someone on this call who helped to change state law. And we're going to highlight some of those stories throughout the coming year, but I just want to underscore the accessibility of this. You can have a professional help you. Yeah.
And
Jody.
I just want to share, as you're speaking, Allison, I'm reminded of one of last year's meetings with Representative Nicole Macri, who made a really powerful statement that I think is a good reminder for everybody as we head into this work together is, she was speaking from her official elected position, and she says, "We do not hear from you nearly as much as you think we do. We cannot hear from you enough." And I think that's really important to remind folks, right? Is that it can feel like, oh, I already told them how I feel. Oh, I've already sent my email. And no, actually not. No, we need to do it again and again. And maybe it's because something is moving through the process, but maybe it's just a like, hey, remember, this is important. Keep this at the top of your mind as you move through the work you're doing.